Hello, today I'll be presenting Chapter 4 of Edgar Schein's book, Humble Consulting. In Chapter 4, Edgar Schein talks about how in humble consulting, everything begins with the first conversation between the consultant and the client. In order to build a relationship, the initial contact is key. The initial response can build a relationship with your client and be immediately helpful in helping the client to understand the issues at hand and what can be done to essentially implement change right away. In order to go into that first conversation and build a relationship with the client, he talks about how as a consultant you must have attitudinal preparation. Basically, as a consultant, you have to have a sense of commitment, curiosity, and caring. You want to be authentic and you want to be empathetic to the client's needs. You also want to go into the meeting with the client with an open mind. You don't want to have any type of preconceived ideas about the client or any type of implicit bias that can affect your performance and relationship with the client. Schein talks about different strategies on how to listen and communicate with your client. He talks about self-oriented listening, where the client is asking themselves, do my skills and experience match with the situation at hand? He talks about context empathetic listening, where you're paying attention to the issue presented by the client. And he talks about person empathetic issues, where you focus on how the client or the person is feeling about the situation at hand. Essentially, again, focusing on empathy and how the client feels about their situation at hand. How to respond to the client. Schein talks about different steps in building the relationship with the client. Step 1 of the humble consulting is the humble inquiry with the client. Here, you want to make sure you remain committed to being helpful. Again, you want to be open, and you want to make sure that you seem authentic to the client. The type of questions that you might want to ask should be open-ended. Again, this allows for the client to provide you with information, so allowing yourself to utilize open-ended questions will give the client basically an opportunity to, really answer in a long format and provide a lot of information that you would need to address the issues at hand. Schein also talks about diagnostic inquiry, where you're asking questions like, why did that happen? These type of questions are designed to allow the consultant and client to understand the issue together. He also talks about 3 types of diagnostic questions. The conceptual questions, where you're asking why. The emotional, where you're asking the client how it makes them feel. And behavioral, where you're asking the client, why did you do that? So, to kind of determine their behavior and process in understanding the issue. Circular questions and process focus. Here, Schein talks about how you have to consider possible consequences of what the client proposes. He basically talks about suggestive inquiry, where you're asking suggestive questions to force new content into the story. You're basically asking the client questions like, did that not make you feel angry? There's also process-oriented inquiry, where you're redirecting how the client formulates the issue, and also determining how they want the consultant to help them fix the issue at hand. Personal revelation. Here, Schein talks about how, again, humble consulting requires authenticity. You may want to reveal something about yourself to build trust with the client and let them know that you're being open, truthful, and authentic towards meeting their needs. The chapter also goes through a set of cases. Case number 5, titled Whether to Develop a Culture Analysis Template. Here, the lessons learned from the case was that basic help occurred in the first conversation when curiosity and interest helped the client rethink what she was trying to do. Honest questions allowed the client to be open in this case example, and also the approach led to digging out what the client needed in this particular case. In case 6, creating a client through a process suggestion, Alpha Power Company, lessons learned by Schein was that relationship building requires personal honesty. You must also be prepared to shift roles as your needs and the client needs change. In Case 7, the Massachusetts Audubon Board Task Force of Personalization Success, lessons learned was that cultivated trust among board members and communication with the head of the agency, Norma, and board members. The adaptive move in this case was to change the conversation and invite an emotional response to basically, again, elicit better communication between the board members and the head of the agency. In Case H, the Cambridge at Home Committee of Personalization of Failure, Shine and a group of friends explore the concept of staying in their homes versus going into a nursing home. Here, lesson learned was that Shine moves into a leadership role and the group finds this helpful. He also, as part of lessons learned in this example, indicates that activity or behavior that is out of line with existing culture will not survive. Basically, if you introduce a new behavior to already established team norms, group norms, that specific activity or behavior won't survive in the long term because it won't be adapted by team members. In summary of Chapter 4 of Humble Consulting, Humble Consulting begins with the first conversation. In order to build a level 2 relationship, you must really be cognizant of the initial interaction and reaction with the client. The initial relationship with the client begins with the consultant being helpful, curious, and caring. Again, you want to be empathetic, trustworthy, and authentic. Shine indicates that you shouldn't be self-oriented and listening. Basically, if you're directing questions towards only your own skills and how they adapt to your specific experience, the client may close themselves off and not reveal their issues, not be open-ended, and open with you in terms of what they need to fix their issues. In order to build a relationship, again, he talks about how building a relationship begins with a tone of voice, your attitude towards the client, and most importantly, your empathy and authenticity towards the client, as these are the foundations of the humble consulting approach.